All right, so picture this. You're about to walk into this super important meeting, right? And USAID is like a key player, but you've only got like 5 minutes to get up to speed.
Oh, been there.
Right. It's a scramble. So that's what we're doing today, diving deep into USAID. We've got this document, USAID, a complex landscape of aid and development, and it is jam-packed with
It
insight.
lately is.
And we're going to unpack what this organization actually does because it's so much more than just, writing checks.
Yeah, it's way more than just the money. USAID is involved in all these different areas. Like you've got health, education, economic development, humanitarian aid.
It's huge, right?
It's massive. They're working in tons of countries, partnering with governments, NGOs, the private sector. I mean, it's really a global network.
Okay, so it's not just about handing out cash, right? There's a whole philosophy behind it.
Yeah.
The document talks about their mission: promoting democracy, sustainable development, and fostering resilience. That's a pretty big, pretty ambitious to-do list.
It is. And sometimes those goals can actually clash with each other. The source gives this example from Egypt. USAID was trying to support democratic reforms there, but they also had to consider stability and economic growth.
Right, because if things get too unstable.
Exactly, it can backfire. So it's this constant balancing act for them.
And then, on top of that, you've got the whole funding issue.
Mm.
USAID's budget comes from Congress, so it's not like they have this bottomless pit of money.
Right. It's not like they're just independently wealthy. Their budget is determined by Congress, which means it's influenced by different lawmakers and their priorities. Like just recently, there was this whole debate about funding for USAID's maternal health programs in Africa.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Some lawmakers wanted to cut the funding while others were really fighting hard to keep it. It can get pretty intense.
Yeah, I bet. So it's clear that politics definitely plays a role in how USAID operates. The document, it specifically mentions the Trump administration. They proposed some pretty significant cuts to USAID and wanted to shift their priorities.
That was a big deal.
One of the things they targeted was this thing called the Development Credit Authority, which basically helps to bring in private investment for developing countries. Their argument was that the private sector should be more involved.
Right. The idea was to leverage private capital to make aid more sustainable.
But, some people were worried that this would end up hurting the poorest communities. Like, would the private sector really be interested in investing in those places?
Yeah, that was a major concern. It really shows how foreign aid is often tied to U.S. interests, even when the goal is to help other countries. It's not always purely altruistic.
For sure. And it's not just presidents and administrations that have opinions about this stuff. The document mentions this guy, Andrew Natsios. He was the head of USAA under President George W. Bush.
Oh, yeah, Natsios. He was a big proponent of focusing on economic growth as the main driver of development.
Right. He basically argued that if you can get the economy going, that's the best way to help people escape poverty.
Which makes sense on the surface, right?
Yeah. But it also sparked a lot of debate. Some people argue that this approach ignores other crucial needs like healthcare and education.
Exactly. Like, what good is economic growth if people are still dying from preventable diseases or if they can't read? You need a more holistic approach.
Totally. And speaking of different perspectives, the document also talks about some lawmakers who have, very different views on USAID. Like Senator Kennedy. He's been pretty vocal about his criticisms.
Yeah, Kennedy's a big proponent of accountability and making sure that aid actually produces results, which, is fair.
Right. Like, may want to know that the money is being used effectively. And then you have someone like Representative Ilhan Omar. She's more focused on increasing funding for humanitarian aid, especially in places where there are conflicts.
Yeah, her argument is that we have a moral obligation to help those who are suffering, regardless of the political situation.
And these are all important points.
Hmm.
But the document doesn't just sing USAID's praises. It actually brings up some of the criticisms that have been leveled at the agency, like concerns about corruption.
Right, like, is the aid actually getting to the people who need it? Or is some of it being siphoned off along the way?
And then there's the issue of aid dependency.
Yeah, the worry is that if countries become too reliant on aid, it might discourage them from developing their own solutions.
And another big one is the difficulty of actually proving that aid is working.
Right. Development is a complex process, and it's hard to isolate the impact of aid from all the other factors at play.
It's tough to measure. I mean, think about it. Even something as simple as the USAID website being down
Oh, yeah. I've run into that before.
can really erode trust and make it harder for them to be accountable.
For sure. If you can't even access basic information about what they're doing, it makes you wonder what else they might be hiding.
Right. Transparency is so important, especially when you're dealing with taxpayer money. The document talks about USAID.gov as a resource, where they're supposed to be sharing data about their projects, their budgets, their impact.
Which is a good thing. It's a step in the right direction.
But it also makes you wonder about the potential of tools like Perplexity AI. What if you could use AI to analyze all of that USA data?
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
really track where the money's going and see if it's actually making a
That
difference.
would be amazing. But even with the best technology, we still need people who can think critically about the data and understand the nuances of each situation. Numbers can tell you part of the story, but they don't always give you the whole picture.
Absolutely. So we've really gone deep on USA today.
We have.
It's more than just handing out money. It's tangled up in politics. It faces real challenges, but it's also trying to make a positive impact in the world.
And that leaves us with a really interesting question. As the world is becoming more interconnected and we're facing all these new global challenges, how can USA adapt and evolve to be even more effective and ensure that its aid is truly sustainable in the long run?
That's a good one. Something to think about.
Definitely.